Hey, friends and fans, welcome to today's episode of The Magic of Music. My name is John Lerack, and today we're going to be discussing the second element of music, melody. Now, what is melody? I've asked my students that many times in the past, and they give me answers like, it's the part we sing, or it's the part we hum. Well, those can be correct, though sometimes they're not necessarily the right answer. The most simple answer I give for what melody is it's the tune. It's the most recognizable part of a song, a composition that you hear that you go, ha ha, I know what that is. For example, bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum, or you could hear. The shark, right? So that's melody. But there are different kinds of melody and there are different ways of writing melody in Western music, and those are most commonly known as monophonic, homophonic, and polyphonic. Well, I know you may have some familiarity with those terms, monophonic, homophonic, polyphonic, especially maybe monophonic. So when we do any music electronically, whether we're listening to it or performing it or recording it, we often have that choice of having it in stereo or having it in mono. When it's in mono, what does that mean? It means we hear it from one source, from one speaker. Well, it's a little bit different in terms of composition, but it's very similar. What we mean by monophony or monophonic music is that we are writing or singing or performing just a single melody line, nothing else. An early example would be chant, especially most of us are familiar somewhat with Gregorian chant. But monophony's around us all the time. Anytime you're singing by yourself in the shower, that's monophony. When you're at work and you're singing with a bunch of people, happy birthday to a friend or colleague, that's monophony. Now, granted, I know especially for the vocally insecure in that group, they may not be singing the exact same notes or the exact same rhythms as everybody else, but the intent is there. And that single melody line all by itself is monophonic music. The most common form of melody we have in Western music, though, is called homophonic or homophony. And you know I love anything with the letters H-O-M-O at the beginning, but what does that mean for music? Well, for music, it means that we have a prominent melody that's usually accompanied, supported by other sounds, other rhythms that help to make that composition a little more interesting, a little stronger. For instance, if I sing a little excerpt of this song by Elton John, my voice is singing the melody, but my hands are playing the accompaniment or supporting parts on the keyboard. It's a little bit funny, this feeling inside. I'm not one of those who can easily hide. I don't have much money, but boy, if I did, I'd buy a big house where we both could live. As I've said before, melody does not have to be just in the voice, though. It can be in any instrument, whether you're a solo instrument like a flute or a trumpet, or you're an instrument like the piano that you can play the melody and play some accompaniment at the same time. For example, in this short excerpt of my arrangement of the African American spiritual, Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen, my right hand is mostly concerned with bringing out that melody, bringing out that tune that many folks will recognize. My left hand is there to support it. It's there to add some accompaniment and make it a little more interesting. So if you know that nobody knows the trouble I've seen, that's what my right hand was bringing out. Those are both examples of homophonic music. Our third and final form of melody in composition is called polyphony or polyphonic music. Poly meaning many, and so many voices. So in this form, we can take a single melody line, and it can be sung or played by as many instruments or voices as you want, and they're playing it or singing it at different times. The most common example of this is a round like Row, Row, Row Your Boat.
Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Row your boat merrily, merrily, the stream. Merrily, life is but a dream. Merrily, merrily, life is but a dream. Row your boat gently down the stream. Row your boat merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Merrily, merrily, life is but a dream. This form of polyphony is called imitative. It means we're just imitating each other and doing the same thing but at different times. Now, there's also non-imitative polyphony, which is most commonly found in compositional forms like fugues and canons and inventions, but in other places as well. And these all take advantage of a musical technique known as counterpoint. So, counterpoint. Counterpoint is defined as the relationship between two or more voices or instruments that are harmonically interdependent but independent rhythmically and melodically. Got it? Well, let me explain it a different way. So, using counterpoint, we have voices that when they are sound together, those two notes sound at the same time, they have to sound like they're intentional, or they have to sound good. For instance, here's this note and this note played at the same time. That's considered pleasing to our Western ears. If we had something like this, or this, or this, we usually don't want that, though there are occasions to cause a little tension. But the voices have to sound like they're meant to be there at the same time and that they sound good together. However, with the melody and the rhythm, we can make some changes. What's most commonly done in popular music is to add a riff. We have that melody line that's there, and we may add a few notes, embellish it a little bit. In rhythm, you could slow it down, you could speed it up, you could change it in other ways. And that creates counterpoint. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 gently down the stream. Row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. So if you're still confused by any of this, counterpoint, or anything else, don't worry, I'll be going into each of these aspects in more detail in a later video. But that's it for today's episode of The Magic of Music. If you like this episode, please give it a big thumbs up below and subscribe to my page. As always, if you have a comment or a question, or there's something you'd like to see me cover in a future video, please do leave a comment below and I'll do my best to get to it. Otherwise, I'd love it if you would please subscribe to me and follow me on Facebook and Instagram under John Lirac Music. So that's all for now. Thanks for tuning in.